Question 2. Question 2 was a 5-mark question, and the question read, explain one of the different types of training methods as well as safe and potentially harmful training procedures for a particular sport. If we have a look at what explain is asking us to do, so this is the key term that we need to use here in this particular question. Explain asks us to relate cause and effect, make the relationship between things evident, provide the why and or how. I guess another way of looking is because of the thing that we're talking about, what is going to occur as a result of the use of that. So we need to relate to the cause and effect in this particular question. If we look at the Board of Studies dot points here, the question asks us to look at one, but in our understanding of what the Board of Studies is telling us to do, we need to have an understanding of two of these areas. This particular question asks us to do one. Some of us, unfortunately, didn't read the question and outlined more than one of the areas that you need to do, which wasted time and took away from the effectiveness of the ability for you to answer that question. So essentially you had to look at either strength training, aerobic training, anaerobic training, flexibility training and skill training, or skill training I should say, and then examine how that particular type of training is going to improve performance. The second part of the question was looking at the safety aspect, and you needed to then discuss how to make the activity safe and what are some of the concerns and what are some of the things that could make this particular type of training dangerous for the athlete. So if we have a look at this here, we can see the marking criteria. To get 5 marks, you need to be able to demonstrate relationships between the types of training and the methods used. So what are the types of training? And then within that type of training, there are different ways of achieving that. So what are the methods that we use to train? What are the relationships between the type of training and how improvement of performance occurs? And you would demonstrate that point through your use of examples and relating it to a particular sport for an athlete. The next part was asking us to look at the safe and potentially harmful aspects of training. Again, you need to show recognition of what made it safe or what made it dangerous, using relevant examples and presented in a logical and cohesive manner. If you're able to do that, you would have got 5 marks. If we scroll down and have a look at some of the areas that you could have used. So basically it's an explanation of what the type of training is. So what is strength training and what sports is it suited to? So in this particular examples here, we would look at strength training suitable for sports like rowing. Types of strength training, so the methods that you could use would be resistance training. You would need to discuss that. You would need to discuss weight training, what the difference between that is, and then of course isometric training. So an explanation of those areas and how they would improve performance. The next part of your answer would need to include how could a coach ensure safety, and you might discuss some of these things like not lifting too heavy, making sure that the correct technique is used, having a spotter, maybe discussing hygiene are some things that a coach could use to ensure that safety is being looked at there. Some of the contraindicated or the areas that may cause an unsafe environment for an athlete in this particular area of training, and again with strength training, maybe not adhering to those aspects. So having poor technique, not lifting the weights that are appropriate for the athlete. Those are some things there that would need to be continued. Aerobic training, longer distance running is the discussion there. Cycling or swimming, you could also incorporate those into your answer. Usually longer than 30 minutes of duration. The types of or the methods of aerobic training that could be discussed or should be discussed are continuous or uniform running, fartlek training, and long interval training. You would need to have an understanding of the differences between each of those, and you had to talk about those and how they were different in your answer. The safety aspect, the coach may look at things like, is it a safe area for us to perform this continuous running? Is there adequate water and hydration available to the athlete, and is the footwear that's being used by the athlete appropriate? Again, some things that would make it unsafe are not adhering to those aspects that we've just discussed. Plus things like, are you working the athlete to an appropriate level? You're not pushing them too hard and not giving them a lack of recovery time. Anaerobic training, which is power and speed, suitable for power sports like athletic, jumping and throwing events. All the football codes would be incorporated into that. They would also all use some aspect of aerobic training, so that could be utilised in your examples. The methods of aerobic training to be discussed, would need to look at developing power through resistance and weight training, so that would be one area. Plyometrics, a definition of what plyometrics is, and short interval training. Those 3 areas need to be discussed as per being prescribed by the Board of Studies. Again, the safety aspect, how do we make it safe, not lifting too heavy, making sure that if you're in the gym using weights that you have a spotter, hygiene, water, hydration, using appropriate footwear. Some of the things that may make anaerobic training dangerous could include the intensity or the duration of the actual exercise is too demanding for the athlete, and as a result puts them at risk of injury. There may be a lack of planning as to what activities are being used, and again the lack of recovery, so the athlete needs to have recovery time to be able to gain the full benefits and not put them at risk of being injured. The next area that you could have used was flexibility training, suitable for sports like gymnastics, athletics. Again, all the football codes could have been the examples that you used in that. And a lot of guys did this area of training. The area of flexibility training that needed to be discussed would be static flexibility, dynamic flexibility and ballistic flexibility. You would need to discuss each of those and show the differences of those and show how each of those can improve performance. The better answers were able to discuss P&F stretching, proprioneuromuscular facilitation, and put it appropriately into the static stretch section there, or methods. Again, the use of examples to back up and show how that was going to improve performance. The safety, again, having correct technique, making sure that the muscles are aligned and stretched in a way that's not putting stress upon the joints. And there are a range of contraindicated exercises that you would be able to use and demonstrate in your answer here as an understanding of safety aspect. Any exercise that incorporates hyperextension would be something that demonstrates a lack of sense of the safety aspect. And again, of course, the ballistic area of stretching is one that was discussed by most boys quite effectively. The last area that you could have discussed, if you had so chosen, was skill training, and again suitable for sports like all the football codes: cricket, basketball, touch football. Type of skills training to be discussed. You need to have an understanding of drills practice and how that then melded into modified or small-sided games, and then how then the games for specific outcomes could have been applied by the coach. Most boys were able to do the drills, practice and modified small games, but if there was an area that we didn't do well was the games for specific outcomes. I guess an example may be looking at trying to target a particular defender in a game of rugby league or rugby union where you create plays to be able to do that or perform that outcome. Those are the things that needed to be incorporated there. In terms of the safety aspects, things like is this appropriate surface? Is it without obstruction? So have you got post pads on? Have you got the adequate safety areas marked off so that players are not going to be colliding with each other? Water, hydration, again, appropriate footwear. Some of the contraindicated things may be lack of planning in that aspect. Now, just to sum up, all of those 5 areas could have been discussed. You needed to choose one of them, and you needed to discuss it in relation to what it is, how it improved performance, and what the methods are. And then finally, you needed to talk about the safety aspects. An example of an answer who did that very well was this one here. If we look at this answer, they've chosen to do flexibility training. They've discussed what flexibility training is. I like that they've used some appropriate terms in the range of motion. They've highlighted proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, put it into the correct area of the answer, that being static stretching, and explain what it is, how it improved performance. That's the important thing is how does it improve performance? We've seen an appropriate example. Gymnastics is the example that's used there. We then move into dynamic stretching to explain what dynamic stretching is, and how that can improve performance and who it is appropriate for. And then lastly, in the last section, with examples, again I should say, the last section they've talked about is ballistic stretching, how that is appropriate, how it can improve performance, when it is appropriate for athletes to use, and the safety aspects have been discussed here as well.